friends, students, teachers, and guests across the province. Welcome to AI as an assistive technology in education. It's going to be about executive functioning. What's that? And literacy applications with our guest today, Liran Leidershnaider. And as always, we begin with the land acknowledgement. Let's take a moment to get ourselves anchored for this. Maybe you want to put your feet on the ground, take a deep breath. Think about an area, a land, a place that is special to you as I read the acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are being hosted on distinct and diverse traditional territories of the First Nations and Métis where we live. And I think we are on lands that are governed by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. The idea is that we all can peacefully live together in sharing this one dish, this land, and all that it provides, so long as we each are mindful of only taking what we need. We also recognize the enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and the Inuit peoples. And I think we believe that the land acknowledgement is a moment for learning. So I am going to share something with you that I learned about as I was developing the AI challenge and that I've been following since last year. And that is that there are many different ways for people to think about what AI is. And Indigenous communities that from across Canada, first starting at Concordia University in Quebec, had an idea that they wanted to develop artificial intelligences in ways that reflect Indigenous knowledge systems. And there's a whole program and effort now across the globe with people from New Zealand and Hawaii, United States and Canada, Turtle Island, all involved in this project. And I like the reframe of AI as abundant intelligences. And as I follow the work, what really fascinates me is a lot of the times I see AI described in a particular way, using particular words. And it's really interesting to see how these different Indigenous communities talk about AI, describe AI, imagine what they want AI to be. So that is something you might want to go and have a look at as you continue working your way through the AI challenge. All right, to our topic today. Why should we learn about using AI as an assistive technology in education? The executive functioning and literacy applications, like how can AI actually be useful? I remember the question that we're trying to answer as we go through the challenge is how can AI enhance the lives and possibilities of every student in our school? And if you think about all the different people in our school communities and the different talents that they have, things that people are good at when it comes to learning, things that people struggle with in learning, all the different needs within your own friends and classmates within your school, is there something in AI that can be helpful for learning? And the second piece is there's a lot of concern right now about people just going in and using AI to do the work for them and not doing the important skill development and thinking that we know needs to be done in order for us to become, adept at things in life, to actually learn things. So it's a really important topic today that we're bringing to you today. And Liran, I'm going to invite you to turn your camera on at this point and welcome you. Hi, Liran. So glad to have you here. Students and teachers, guests, meet Liran Leidershnaider. He's a graduate student in the School and Clinical Child Psychology program at the University of Toronto. He's working under a supervisor, Dr. Todd Cunningham, in the Academic Intervention Lab. So that lab really focuses on what are the things we can put into students' lives that are going to help them learn. He's passionate about the role of artificial intelligence in education, having helped in supporting the development of a course about AI in education. He does lots of presentations. He also has a life outside of this work. He loves to spend time with family and friends traveling, and he has been involved in competitive swimming since childhood. So Liran, welcome back, because we've had you in before. So happy to have you with us today. I'm going to turn off my camera and turn the presentation over to you, and I can't wait to see what you have to share with us.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Heidi, and hello to everyone tuning in. It's well, first I wanna thank you for inviting me back. It's such a pleasure to be giving this demonstration to I think and this initiative again. We're talking about AI at a time where so much technology is rapidly evolving and so many things are going on. And I'm just really excited to share this information with everyone. And I'll talk a little bit more about the ways in which this presentation differs a little bit from ones and the one that I've done in the past. So without me saying too much, without showing anything, why don't I start with getting my slides on the screen here. So I'll move this here and then share my screen. Wonderful. Okay, and I hope that this is visible. If I could just get a very quick confirmation.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Okay, so why don't I get started then? So the title of my presentation today is Artificial Intelligence as an Assistive Technology in Education, specifically in the realm of executive functioning and literacy applications. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I mean by that very quickly. Before I actually get into any of that stuff, I wanted to provide a little bit of an intro on who I am and the company that I'm representing. So I'm here today on behalf of a company called Learn Different, which was founded by Dr. Todd Cunningham in 2015. And so really the main goal of Learn Different is to support students and educators by providing evidence-based instructions and techniques on anything widely to do with education, really. However, as Heidi briefly introduced from my intro, I am part of a research lab called the Academic Intervention Lab, and our goal is to identify and support students with learning disabilities and specifically address how to best identify and support these students. So when it comes to this, there are two things that we can do. One of the things is remediation, which involves things like reading screeners and supporting the development of a certain skill that a student is potentially still developing. But we also have these things called compensatory things, such as assistive technologies, right? So here's that word coming around again, assistive technology. So what is assistive technology then? So I wanted to read you the exact definition just so that we can all get on the same page about what I mean when I say assistive technology. And I'll tie in, and I also hope that you'll see through this presentation how AI can be an assistive technology, because that's really what I'm trying to drive home for everyone here today. So assistive technology is any technology that allows an individual with a disability to increase, maintain, or improve their functional capabilities. This can be any item, any piece of equipment. It could be software, it could be a product system, it could be something you hold in your hand, or it can be something that you see on your screen, such as AI, for example. But the bottom line is that it allows our students and our folks with exceptionalities to perform tasks that might otherwise be difficult or even impossible to do, right? That's why we add in this as a compensatory strategy, because it compensates for a certain part of our life that some people may be struggling with, right? And so the goal of these technologies is to work around a student's area of weakness. We all learn differently, right? All of us, even me presenting this presentation, everyone that's listening, we've all learned differently and we all continue to learn differently, right? And so the goal of these assistive technologies is to allow the students with exceptionalities and areas of weakness to make sure that we're developing our skills with accuracy, efficiency, and independence. And once again, I hope I'll show you with some of the demonstrations that I do how AI can be used as an assistive technology, even though when we think of AI, so this slide says how AI works. I just want to quickly touch on what AI is, and then I'll go into how AI works or how AI works, and then we'll get into the fun stuff with the demonstration, so I won't ramble on for too long. When I ask someone what AI is, I frequently get AI is a robot, right? AI is ChatGPT. AI is Copilot. That's very fair. That's especially in our current day and age, that is so fair. AI, if we want to take the literal definition, is something that we originally thought only humans were able to do. That is how we literally and technically define AI or artificial intelligence. In the domain of language-based models, which are things like Copilot, which I'll be showing you today, the bottom line is this arrow that you see here, aside from all of the text. The way that it works is that Copilot learns patterns based on the way that it was trained. It then makes predictions, and then it performs tasks. So it's kind of interesting to think about how AI actually doesn't have a goal when you interact with it. When you feed it information, it has no idea what it's doing. It's just predicting. It's predicting the next likely word to appear in a sentence. I'll give you a quick example. If I say the sun rises in the, most of us maybe would think morning. And that would be the most common answer to that question. The sun rises in the morning because, it can't rise at night. So based on these predictions, Copilot and other AI have become so smart that they can actually perform tasks. Now, here's what I find really cool about artificial intelligence. We've all actually been using artificial intelligence, so I still come across, and understandably so, because we're quite early on, despite how much has happened. I still come across folks that are so surprised by how new AI is. And again, that's so fair, but AI has already been in things like speech recognition and word prediction and grammar checkers, text-to-speech and translation. All of these tools that we maybe may not, but we may have been using on a daily basis are AI-based. For example, if I don't want to text because my hands are really cold with how the winters are in our city, I'll use speech to text. That is an example of AI being infused into the background. If someone plugs in Google Maps to try to get to a destination, there is AI that's working in the background to get you to your destination as quickly and reliably as possible. So what I'm trying to say is that we haven't always been seeing it, but it's always been there. Now it's just a lot more apparent with some of these models that we have, like Copilot and like ChatGPT, where we can open a website and actually interact with those softwares. I'm going to throw a couple of questions your way. These are kind of rhetorical, open-ended. It's just to stimulate some critical thinking. These will be weaved into some of the things that I talk about today, but I won't necessarily answer these questions because I'm not sure that they have an answer yet because we're working to develop the answers for these, okay? So the first question I have for you is, can the new AI tools be used to support students and enhance their learning? So is it possible to use these AI tools? My argument and my answer is yes, and hopefully I'll be able to demonstrate that to you through this presentation. Another question that I have, and that's something that Heidi mentioned, is how can we ensure that authentic learning is taking place, right? I'll be the first person to admit that when we think about AI and things like Copilot and ChatGPT, we think about plagiarism, right? We think about authenticity, how real something is nowadays, right? If I use Copilot, does what I create make sense to me? Is that still real? Is that still me, right? Is that still something that I've made, or is that something that AI has made? So we want to make sure that this integrity and authenticity, how real it is still definitely there, right? That's an important component. I do want to make my stance a little bit clear that I believe that these tools are here to stay and they're not going to be going away. And as a result, because we're faced with these technologies and these tools being present in our lives, perhaps it's time that we start shifting our thinking a little bit in terms of how do we then adapt to using these technologies in a beneficial way. And that circles back to my theme of assistive technology and using it as a technology that can assist students. Students with exceptionalities, our neurotypical students, it can be used for everybody. And my demonstrations will hopefully shed some light on how that can be possible. Okay? So now it's time for me to go over some of the things that I'll be talking to you about. So I mentioned executive functioning and I mentioned literacy. Let me put everything on the screen for you. So when I'm talking about literacy, I mean reading and writing. So I'm going to provide you with a live demonstration. So you're going to see me working with Copilot with you, and I'm going to be interacting with things called prompts, which I'll show you in just a second. So I'm going to be showing you how I use the AI to potentially support me if I were a student that needed help with writing an essay or needed help with summarizing a document or a text. So that's what I mean when I say literacy. When I say executive functioning, I mean some of the higher order tasks that we tend to do and we do in our everyday lives. Things like organizing, right? Things like planning, things like chunking or compartmentalizing or making outlines, just all of these higher order skills and techniques that we do to try to guide our way through our day and through school, right? Literacy and executive functioning, as a student myself still, are two very, very integral components of my life, and they continue to be as we go through school. So I'm going to tie that into Copilot. So you've heard me mention the word prompts for the first time. So what are prompts? Very simply put, prompts are the things that we put into the AI. It's the text that you'll see me typing into AI. I will preface by saying that I have a lot of copy paste stuff. That's only for the sake of time, because once you see some of my prompts, you'll understand that it would take too long for me to generate in the moment for the sake of the time that I have for this presentation. However, what I'm going to add to today's presentation is I'm also going to wing it for some parts of it. I'm going to show you what Copilot tells me, and I'm going to tell it how I feel based on how I feel in that moment. So you'll see this added level of interaction or added level of back and forth conversation that I'm going to have with the AI. So how do I create these prompts? Okay, I know this is a lot of text, and there's no point in reading all of this right now. There are good and bad prompts. This is true. And how we create a prompt is really important for the output that we get from the AI. I want you to focus on the 5 bubbles on the left. Prompts should be clear. They should be clear, so they should have clarity. They should be specific. They should be open-ended, right? We should let the AI do some of the thinking and try to let us think outside the box a little bit. They should be, of course, relevant, and they should use objective language, right? So we want to be a little bit more general about the things. And as the conversation progresses, we can get a little bit more specific and a little bit more niche with the things that we put into it. So be clear, be specific, be open-ended, be relevant, or make sure that what you're putting is relevant, and be objective with your language. So just make sure that you're not being overly specific at the beginning, right? Even though they're still important to be specific. Here's another table, which I know is a little bit overwhelming, but this is another approach that you'll see me actually use in some of the prompts. And so there's still research that's coming out about AI and prompts, and actually some things that we're doing in our research lab at the University of Toronto that involve studying what makes a good prompt. So you'll hear me go back and forth on some of the ways that I present the prompts and what I think makes a good prompt. Another formula that you can use is this persona, task, content, and format table. So when I say persona, you give the AI a persona. You make it someone. So like you are a math tutor or you are a grade 5 student. You're going to see that a lot. So you give it a character. Then you give it a task. So you tell it what you want the AI to do. So you are a grade 5 student that is trying to understand what a chapter of a book means. So we give it a task. Then we provide some content, so it needs some information to feed off of course, in order to make those predictions and give us our output. And the format is also important. So the way that we structure it. So are we writing huge paragraphs into AI? Probably not a great idea at the beginning when it comes to our prompt. And I'm going to show you different size of prompts, different lengths, different formats. You're gonna see it do a lot of things today. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting. Okay, so let's get into writing, which is going to be the first focus under literacy that I want to demonstrate for you. So I only have a few more slides, and then the good news is that the rest of the presentation is all me working in Copilot. So writing is hard. Learning to write is also pretty hard, right? So sometimes we have this pyramid that we present, and you can see that at the bottom, we have some of the core skills of writing, like concepts of print in the bottom right there. How do we make letters? How do letters sound, right? A S versus an S, right? An S is a letter, a S is a sound. Then we have, working up, we have our vocabulary. We have ways that we write. And then we get into the complex act of written expression, which is where we combine all of these fundamental skills to actually be able to write things on a paper or on a computer or type, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can write. There's a lot of ways that we can organize our writing. For the sake of this demonstration and with AI, I'm going to use an example called TOWER, or the POWER framework. So the T in TOWER stands for think. If I say the P in power means plan. So thinking and planning is the first step. The O is organize. So we think or plan, then we organize our writing, and I'll show you how AI can help you with that. Then we do the actual writing. So I'll actually write a paragraph or write an essay. Then I'll go back, I'll reread it, and I'll edit that essay. And at the very end, I'll just review it before I submit. That's something that I do all the time. I write an essay or I write an assignment, I review it, I make sure it's good, I leave it for a day, and then before I submit, I review it and I read it one more time just for myself to make sure that it's all okay for submission. So we're going to use this Tower or Power framework to go through AI. And that's where I leave it with the slides. So now it's time for us to get into our presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition to Copilot. And I do believe that Copilot should be visible now for everyone. So welcome. For those that may have seen Copilot, welcome back. For those that are new to it, this is what it looks like. So it's accessed by just typing in copilot.com or just Copilot into Google and it'll be the first link. To my best knowledge, you don't actually need an account in order to access it. And this is what it looks like. So as you can see down here, this is where we have the Ask Me Anything box. And this is where I start winging it with some of the prompts that I do. So I'll show you how it works. So I'm going to just simply type hello, explain what you are. And I hit enter. And as you can see, it instantly generated a paragraph about what it is. So it says, hi there, I'm Microsoft Copilot, a conversational artificial intelligence designed to assist you with a wide range of tasks. So some of you might be familiar with ChatGPT. The way that Copilot works is very similar to ChatGPT. So I'm going to open up a new chat, and why don't we get started with some of the examples that I have for you. So we're back to focusing on writing, right? And specifically that planning process. So let's say we're planning our essay. And again, I'm pasting in my prompt for the sake of time. So here's what I say. I'm a grade 7 student looking to write an argumentative essay on the topic of the pros and cons of assistive technology and would like your help with coming up with some ideas. Please list 3 areas that I can write about related to my topic that I can choose from. Feel free to ask me questions to provide more refined ideas. So if you'll notice, this first part, I'm a grade 7 student, that's the persona. Writing an argumentative essay is the task. Pros and cons of assistive technology is the content. And the format is I'm asking it to list 3 areas, right? So I'm being quite specific with my prompt. So when I hit enter, you can see that I'm instantly starting to get some ideas from Copilot. So I want to do the pros and cons of assistive technology, and it's divided it into 3 areas. The first being educational impact, the second being workplace inclusion, the third being daily living and independence. And you can see that it's giving me pros and cons in each. So let's look at the first one right over here. So under educational impact, it's telling me that assistive technology can help students with disabilities access the curriculum, participate in class, and improve their learning outcomes. That's true. That's very true. A con is that there might be a dependency on technology and not all schools can afford the latest assistive devices. That's also a great point, right? Assistive technology, especially AI, is based on 2 things, right? Having a computer and having access to the internet. What we know is that those 2 things might be a struggle in some areas and might not be in others. So that's a factor that we need to consider when we talk about the pros and the cons. So let's expand on this, okay? So I'm going to insert a prompt, and this prompt says, expand on the first idea some more with a few bullet points. So here is where I'm starting to add this conversational piece with AI and showing you that it doesn't stop here and it shouldn't stop here. The goal isn't to input one prompt and then leave Copilot either being happy or sad with your result, right? The goal is to get to a point where you can discuss what you need and give it to Copilot, get what you need from it, and then feel satisfied before you leave. So let's expand on this first idea. And as you can see, I'm just letting it sink in for a second. If I scroll up, we went from this, right, to this with another prompt. So now we have a lot more information to deal with, right? We have so many more pros, we have so many more cons, right? So why don't I add something that I'm coming up with myself? So as a grade 7 student, which pros and which cons do you think would be most relevant for me to include in my essay? Just for example, let's see what it does. So great question. Here are some pros and cons that might be most relevant. So enhanced accessibility and increased engagement, and then we have dependency on technology and cost and accessibility, right? So you can see that now we went from 4 bullet points in each to 2 in each, but now we have more substance. So we have more sentences. Tell me more about the enhanced accessibility aspect. And boom, here we go. And I hope that you can see that from this point on, I mean, we've come a long way with only 3 or 4 additional things that I've added to Copilot. But you can see that from those 3 ideas, I now have examples of assistive technologies that I can use, right? I have their benefits, equal access, independence, confidence to the student. So you can see that my first prompt was okay, if I do say so myself. It was okay. It was good. It got me to where I needed to start off. But it's really this interaction piece, everyone, that I really want to drive home. It's so important to keep interacting with this AI and to keep talking and to keep expressing what you feel like you need to get from it in whatever way you like. Here, let me change my approach entirely, right? For the sake of maybe being a little bit more relatable. I have no idea what any of that means. Explain it differently, right? Just for example, I don't need to be formal and so structured when using with the AI, right? So it says, no problem, let's break it down into simpler terms. And now look at this, screen readers. Imagine a tool that reads out loud what's on your computer screen. This helps students who can't see well to hear the text instead of reading it, right? So I'm just telling it how I feel. I told it I have no idea what any of that meant. Please explain it differently. And it did that, right? And from here on, I can move forward. So I'm going to do my best to be mindful of the time as I move on. So for the sake of that, let's try a different example. So that's the planning stage. So I hope that you saw that I had AI generate me 3 ideas for my essay. And then I had it elaborate more and more and more and more and more on one specific thing. And you can do that with all of those points, right? Let's move on to the O. So that's organizing, right? I'm completing an argumentative essay, same topic, pros and cons of AT, and I've come up with some ideas. So now I'm putting them myself, and let me isolate them for you. So pros, increased accessibility, personalized learning, and independence. And then we have some cons related to money, training, technical problems. And I'm asking it to provide me with an outline that incorporates my ideas into a 5-paragraph essay. And here we go. I can't count the amount of 5-paragraph essays that I've written on my hands and feet, and it would take me a while if I had to even try to write it down on a paper, right? We've all written so many 5-paragraph, 3-paragraph essays just writing in general. And how many hours have we spent on trying to organize what our essays would look like? We know the 5-paragraph model, intro, 3 bodies, and a conclusion. And you have your thesis statements, your introductory statements, your concluding statements, all of these things merged in between. But how easy and convenient and assistive, right? How assistive is it to have this be provided for you with a prompt, right? Your critical thinking is still there, in my opinion, at least, if I may share that. Because maybe I don't like this thesis statement, for example, or I don't like the thesis statement being here, or maybe I don't want to have a hook in my essay for whatever reason. So I'm still thinking a lot about how I want to organize it, but you can see that it gave me an intro, it gave me a body paragraph, 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them actually, and then a conclusion where it tells me to restate my thesis, summary of main points, etc. So let me again improvise a little bit. I see
Liran,
Heidi
I'm
on
just
my
going to
screen.
hop in here before you go
Yes.
on. What I really like about this, so what you're showing the students is It's for students, particularly who struggle with organization, it's giving
Yes.
an outline, it's giving a
Yep.
structure, it's reminding them of all the different pieces that go into an essay, but they still will be making the choices and the thinking and the decision of how to put those ideas together. It's
Yes.
just help them get the ideas and put them into a structure. Is that right?
Heidi, you've nailed it. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly it. And that's something I really, really value because I've heard that, or I've heard people say that critical thinking goes out the door when we use AI. I really believe that's not true, right? If I took some time with this layout and this outline, I would probably find a lot of things that I don't like, right? Like, for example, cost and technical problems might not be my fifth body paragraph, maybe it would be my second, and so on and so forth. But let me do some more improvising. In the conclusion, I don't understand what restating my thesis means. Can you explain that to me? And you'll notice I have a typo in my spelling. That's totally fine. AI will be good at picking that up and understanding what I mean. So you can see it says it. Restating your thesis in the conclusion means you should rephrase your original thesis statement to remind the reader of your main argument. So even if you don't understand specific things about this outline or specific components, AI will still be able to help you with that, right? Let's play around with it some more. I still don't understand. Explain it simpler. This will be the last thing I do before I move on to the next part. And here we go. You repeat the main idea of your essay by using different words. I've heard that so many times from my teachers, right? In your conclusion, you restate your thesis in different words. That's what you do. You just use different words to summarize the main idea that you had in your introduction, right? And obviously, if you were using this to actually write an essay right now, you would go more and more and more and more in detail with the subsequent prompts. And I'm going to keep saying this, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but this interaction is so important. This iterative or repeated interaction is what's really making AI powerful, rather than just putting a prompt and moving on. So let me show you a quick example with some things that you can actually do with your writing, right? So for this prompt, I'm saying I'm a grade 5 student. Here's one of my sentences, and here's another sentence. So my first sentence is right here, and this is another sentence. And let's say I have no idea how I want to combine these sentences, but I really want to combine them. So provide me with some ways that I can tie these sentences together. And here we go. Adding a connecting phrase like saying however. As a result, on the other hand, additionally. So this is really basic level things, right? Kind of just using AI to even give me one word to combine sentences, right? Let me give you another example. I'll just use the same chat. Here I'm saying that I'm a grade 8 student writing an argumentative essay, and I'm telling it that I've written this sentence, but I'm also saying that I've used the words in the sentence previously, and I want other options on how I can rephrase this sentence. So that actually ties into the conclusion in the last example of restating your thesis. Like, I want to re-say this in different words. Help me do that. And you can see it provided me with 4 examples of how I can rephrase that. Let's look at number 4 very quickly. Assistive technology typically helps students with their challenges and promotes independence at home and school. However, it can require training for users and may come with a high price tag. You know, to me, high price tag is a little bit of an awkward way of saying that these tools can sometimes be costly, right? That's kind of an interesting way to put it, maybe not very formal. But that's me using my critical thinking to be like, okay, I just used AI, but I also didn't just copy paste it instantly into my essay because I didn't like what it gave me. So I would switch that. So the critical thinking piece is always, always, always still in play. Okay. So what have we done so far? We've done T for think, we've done O for organize, we've done W for write, and now we're going to do edit. So we're going down that Tower of Power framework. Okay, this is a huge prompt. The main point is that I'm saying I'm a grade 9 student, and I just wanted to edit my essay for spelling, grammar, and punctuation. And you can do this. It's like using Grammarly. It's like using Word. They have built-in spell checkers and grammar checkers in Word. I'm sure everyone here has seen it and used it. When you write something and you get that little red underline or that blue underline under a word, right? That means that Word thinks that there's something that could be better. And sometimes it's wrong, just like AI, right? Which is why we also have to fact check it. So you can copy your essay and you can paste it in and you can ask it to edit it for you. just like you would with Grammarly or just how Word does it automatically. It feels a little bit funny though, right? When you take your whole essay and you put it into AI and you say, here, edit it for me, it feels weird still, even to me. It feels weird because it's like AI doing it. But like I said before, AI has been in the background of so many things that we use, we just never knew about it. The only difference now is that we're seeing it in front of our very eyes. I'm looking at it on my screen, right? So what's really sick about Copilot is that it actually gave me a summary of my edits, folks. It told me it corrected some minor spelling errors, it improved punctuation for clarity, ensured consistent use of contractions, but and this is so important, it still maintained the original meaning and structure of the essay. And I did include that in my prompt, is that when you give these things to AI and you want it to edit, you need to make sure that it still maintains the original meaning because you don't want it switching the meaning of your work, right? And so I'm quickly going to jump back to my other slide. I think I have one slide just for this point that I'll share, and then I'll go back to Copilot. And that's the review phase. Reviewing is hard to do with AI, right? Which is, again, that critical thinking piece still comes into play, okay? So imagine you wrote your whole essay, you had AI review it, or edit it, I should say, but you can't give your essay to the AI and be like, review this essay for me and critically think for me. It can try, but your brain is your brain, and how you learn is how you learn, right? And that's why this is impossible to do with AI, because at the end of the day, it's us that are overlooking our material before we submit it. So what do we recommend? Read the essay yourself as you would. Make sure that it looks good. And AI is here to help, right? AI is not here to write it for you. It's only here to support you as an assistive technology, right? So that assist part, it assists you with developing these things and helping you with some stuff that would take a little bit of time, right? I'm going to switch back to Copilot as we continue into reading comprehension. But how many times have we opened a Word document and have just been looking at the blank screen of death, right? Having no idea where to start. What do I even start writing? That is so stressful. That is really stressful. It's always hard to just get something down. But when you use Copilot and you can type in a thing like, give me 3 ideas on this topic, boom, the gears start turning, right? The juices start flowing, right? You start thinking. And that thinking then, oh, I have an idea. Let me write this idea down. Suddenly, your blank screen of death isn't blank anymore because you have a sentence or two or three on it. And I hope you can see where I'm taking that, right? So it's meant to facilitate, to support you with some things that would normally take a lot of time. And you're still maintaining your critical thinking. Okay. I'm going to stop being a broken record and I'm going to start talking to you about reading comprehension, which is really, really neat. So as I'm looking to my other monitor to grab this prompt, what is reading comprehension? So reading comprehension is understanding what we read. We read every day, we read all the time, and understanding what we read is really important. So I'm going to show you some examples that you can do with AI to help you with the reading portion, okay? So in this prompt, I say, I'm a grade 3 student, and I'd like your help with understanding the key words in a passage that I have to read. Please read this passage. Tell me what the keywords are and what each keyword means. Only give me the keywords that you think are most important for me to know. And then I give it the passage. So the passage is really long. The passage is about minerals, maybe not the most fun thing to read about, but we want to get it summarized, and specifically, we want the keywords. So you can see we put in a huge, huge prompt into AI. Why is the prompt so long? Because the passage is that long. The actual prompt is everything other than what I've highlighted. So the prompt is 3 sentences. It's just the content that I'm giving it is really long. So I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, how am I going to use AI when this prompt looks huge? I could have made this passage about minerals be 4 sentences and it would look a lot more pleasing. So I just want to drive that point home. Anyways, back to business. So what did Copilot give us? Copilot gave us 14 key terms. I'll tell you what I really like. Let's go back to the passage very quickly. It starts, what is a mineral? A mineral is a naturally occurring crystalline solid. Crystals are orderly arrangements of atoms. There's three key words that come out to me from this sentence: mineral, crystalline, and maybe crystals, right? Those are the three things. Because if you don't know what a mineral is, you're not going to understand what the passage is, because the whole passage is about minerals. And what has Copilot done? Instantly, the very first key word that it's identified is that it's what a mineral is, right? So right away, it's understood that the passage is about minerals, so you need to get a definition of it. So it's a naturally occurring whatever, 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 right? I won't go through these. Another thing I want to point out is look at the difficulty of the words as we go down the list. I have no idea what a hydrothermal environment is, okay? Or like a fracture. Well, I know what a fracture is when it comes to maybe bones, but for the sake of the example, when it comes to minerals, I would not know what that means, right? So we can see that it takes the words from simple to complex. So it's also smart in that way. So let's improvise a little bit. Can you give me a more simple definition of gems? And you
Karen, I'm
can see
hopping
that,
in again
yes,
just while
yes,
you're doing that. So I know
yep,
as a teacher, many students, when they have a text in front of them and it has really hard words, they look at that and they get discouraged right away. I
yep,
can't read this. I'm getting stuck on the first word, the second word, and I don't want to read this. So
yep,
this is a way for students who want to help make sense of the text. They can first get AI to help them figure out what the hard words are and what those
yep,
mean. And now they then can go back and they can read the text and they're able to understand some of the words. Am I understanding this right?
exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So,
Thank you.
like Heidi said, you start reading a passage and you come across a word and you don't understand what it means. That's definitely discouraging, right? So what Copilot has done with this prompt is it's helped you understand what the word means. And let's say I don't know what gems mean. You can see that I've broken it down. Let's improvise some more. Let's continue interacting, right? I know I'm being a broken record, but I really want to drive this home. I still don't know what mineral means. A mineral is a solid natural substance that forms in the earth. Explain that like I'm 5 years old, okay? And look at that. Imagine you have a box of building blocks. Each block is a different color and shape. When you put them together in a special way, you can build something cool, like a castle or a spaceship. And a mineral is like one of those building blocks. So you can see that because I've prompted for a more simple explanation and asked it to pretend that I'm 5, right? We've all heard they explain this like I'm 5, right? It's now given us an example, something to think about. Now I have an image in my head about a bunch of blocks and how we can combine these blocks, right? And you can do that with every single word in this passage, and you can make it as simple for you as possible. And in no time, Copilot will help you understand what it is that you're reading. I do want to note that you can switch it from a grade 3 student to a grade 7 student. I'm going to move on, but just know that every grade that I have listed here is just for the sake of the example. You could be in a grade 12 class, you could be a grade 10 student, grade 1 student, grade 7 student. It'll customize how it presents the information to you based on the grade that you tell it. So the words that it'll use if you're in grade 3 are way different than what it'll use if you're in grade 10. Because at grade 10, we tend to know more words, and that's just a fact. So it'll use different words. But that doesn't mean that you can't simplify it and ask it to, right? I'll show you another example when it comes to uh, getting some key terms. So I'll start a new chat, and this is the same passage, which is why it's really long, but here's what I'm telling it. Here are 10 key terms and their definitions that I got from reading a passage. And then I give it mineral, I give it crystals, I give it element. What I ask at the end is, what have I missed? So that's really the goal. So pretend that you've read a passage, you've understood 90% of the words, but there's still a couple that you don't get. You can tell the AI what words did not make sense to you, and you can tell it which ones did make sense, and it'll tell you what you missed or what you potentially got right. So you can see that I mentioned minerals in my prompt, but it didn't bring up minerals in any of these 10 points because it realized that I know what a mineral is. I've shown it that I know what a mineral is. And now it's added to things that are in the passage, such as a metamorphic environment or an igneous rock, or all of these interesting things about minerals, right? And that's where the critical thinking comes into play. So imagine you have this passage in front of you, this text, a paragraph. You can put it in and ask it to explain some of the words. You can read the paragraph yourself, put it into Copilot, and then tell it, here's what I understood. What did I miss? And it'll tell you what you miss. Or it'll tell you that you did a great job and you understood the whole thing. So it's really, really flexible with the ways that you can interact with it. You can do so many things with it. The last part that I'm going to show you when it comes to reading comprehension is summarizing. So summarizing basically means making something more simple. I've done a lot of summarizing already in my presentation with some of my demonstrations where I've asked it to explain things like I'm 5 years old, for example, right? Or I've asked it to explain something a little bit more, give me more detail, right? All of these things are examples of summarizing. But what happens when you get 5 pages of text and you're like, oh my gosh, no way I'm going to read this. Or maybe you do read it, but it's hard to understand. Why don't we simplify it? Okay, and we'll be clear about that. So I say summarize the following text into a 500-word paragraph. And this is the mineral passage, trust me, is way longer than 500 words. It's very long. So as you can see, what Copilot has done is it simplified it into 500 words. Let me take it a step further with you live. That's still too long for me, right? Because you can imagine that when we have our students that struggle with reading, even this many words is difficult, right? This would take me a fair amount of time to read, right? I'm sure it'll take anyone a fair of time to read 500 words. That's a lot of words to read. That's a full page. So let's say that's still too long for me. Summarize it for me in 100 words without taking away the meaning. So boom. Let's take it a step further. Now summarize that into 3 bullet points on what the passage was about. Bullet points. Arguably one of the simplest ways to present information is just bullet points. And what's the passage about? It's about the definition and the properties, and it gives you the definition of what a mineral is, and it gives you its properties, right? It tells you how they're formed, how are minerals made, and it tells you the importance of the minerals, right? So what we've done, and of course there's so much more information, but if I just wanted the gist of that passage, I just got it, right? So we went from this, looking back, this is a lot of words. My eyebrows are raised, right? Because that's a lot of words. So we went from that to this, and this becomes so much more manageable to understand. Expand more on the second point because I want more detail. And here we go, okay? We're going back and forth, everyone, right? We went from very long to shorter to super short. Now I'm asking it to go longer, and you can see it's pulling everything and it's doing everything I ask it to, right? And this makes it so flexible, okay? I'm going to stop there for the reading comprehension part because we have just enough time for me to talk to you about executive functioning, which are those higher order skills. But I hope that so far you've seen that this is all an interaction. It's a conversation. Another time, maybe what I would have done is just spoken with Copilot. Like, hey, I'm struggling with this piece of work. Here's why. And I talk about it. Oh, I'm having trouble making a concluding sentence. And then it can tell me something. Oh, but I don't really agree with you, Copilot. I usually do things like this. Here's how I would do it. So you can have these conversations and have these discussions that let you get to the goal that you want to get to, right? Because it's so flexible. So let's talk about some things with organization because this is where I think it really, really shows its power. It's how it can help organize. How many times have we all been in class, right? And heard, all right, everyone, here's your final essay. It's due in 6 weeks, right? For example. So many times, all the time. So let's say we have an assignment, right? Let's say it's due on June 1st. Today is the 26th of March. This is true. I'm asking it to analyze the assignment and help me break down each component into due dates, right? So we're talking about due dates. And then I give the assignment. The gist of the assignment is that you're supposed to choose a celebrity with a learning disability and describe their life. That's the whole assignment. And it involves a presentation and it involves an essay. So look at this. I mean, this is really something. You've just given it the date of today, which is the 26th of March. You've given it the due date. You've explained the assignment. You haven't asked it to do the assignment. Not at all. You're not doing that at all. You're just asking it to help you organize. Because organizing is hard. Using a calendar is great, but using a calendar is hard, right? How long would it take? I mean, look at this. It breaks it down into the days. Something I really, really like is that it even considers how long something would take. Like choose a celebrity with a documented learning disability. 1 day. You don't need more than 1 day to find a celebrity with a learning disability, arguably, right? Compared to conduct initial research, 4 days. In my brain, that makes so much sense, right? It takes longer to do research on a celebrity than finding a celebrity, right? Like the first person that comes to my mind is Justin Bieber. He doesn't necessarily have a learning disability, but let's say, for example, I had to choose a celebrity. Boom. That took me 1 minute, right? But if I were to conduct research on Justin Bieber and his life and his upbringing and where he is now and what he's done, that would take me maybe a few days. So Copilot is really smart with dividing that, okay? Let's make it even cooler because who wants words, right? Words are cool, but sometimes what's cooler than words is something visual, something we can see and just process differently rather than scrolling up and down this tab. Make a table is what I'm telling it to do. 3 columns, the date, the task, and any notes, okay? And boom, that's it. You can print this, right? I can take a screenshot of this. I can put it into a Word document and I can print it. And then I can put it on my desk that I'm sitting in front of and I can start checking things off or crossing things off. I love doing that. I love crossing things off of a list. It makes me feel rewarded. It makes me feel like I'm making progress. But also, look how it's organized everything, right? So although June 1st, 2 months or so, that's a ways away. I could have made this due in 2 weeks and it would have divided everything into less days. Actually, let's try that just to practice what I preach. The due date is actually what's in 2 weeks, April 15th. Can you change the dates to fit this new timeline? It needs to be submitted on the 15th, right? Easy. And there we go, right? I'll scroll up and show you. Sure, it's condensed some things, right? Because you don't have as much time to like dedicate a day to revising a body paragraph. You can revise all the body paragraphs maybe in 1 day, right? If there's 3 of them. But instantly it's done that, right? And so quickly, okay? The very, very last thing that I want to show you for today's presentation is making an outline. And then I'll bring you to my wrap up because I'm looking at the time. And that's making an outline, right? Just again, that summarization piece and understanding what it is that I have to do, okay? Let's use the same prompt. Here's an assignment that I need to complete. It's due on June 1st. Today's March 26th. Analyze the assignment and break down each component into a 500-word outline that's divided into chunks. It's the same assignment on celebrities with learning disabilities. So I want you to imagine this scenario where you get this 3-page assignment that you have to do, and you're flipping through the page. I've done this, and you're flipping through the pages, and it's so hard to it's so overwhelming. There's just so much to process, right? So much information, and you have to do a presentation and an essay and so many things. Why not have Copilot just break it down, right? And let's take it a step further. This is still too much information. Can you break the assignment down into 7 big picture bullet points. So just what are the ideas of the assignment? I just want to know what I need to do. I don't need to know all the details. I just need to know what I need to expect. What do I need to expect? Choose a celebrity, conduct research, write an intro, write my body paragraphs, write a conclusion, revise it, and prepare my presentation. That's it. So as you can see, we went from this big prompt. I mean, look how much information there is on this assignment. We don't need to get into the details of that, right? But you can see that it's broken it down so much. And I'm looking at the time. I'm going to switch to my slides in a second. But just to finally, one last time, drive home this interaction piece where I'm continuing to work with the AI. Tell me more details about the second point on conducting research. What does that mean in the context of this assignment? So like in this assignment, what does that mean? And boom, we're back to getting more details and more information. So I need to credible sources, right? Can't be looking at Wikipedia. I need to gather information on early life struggles, achievements, and I need to use specific examples, etc., right? So this is a lot of organizing that was just done for me in a second. And it's been a while since I've visited this assignment. So I actually forgot what it was really about other than the celebrity with a learning disability. But now I feel confident in if I had to write this, I would know what to do. I'm going to switch back to my slides because I have a few things very quickly to show, and then I'll bring myself to my wrap up. So what have we done? We've done so many things. Deadlines, keywords, generating ideas, planning, the power framework, reading, organizing, summarizing, so many things. And I know that that was a lot of information, but just go and play with it, right? Just go and play with it. AI is here to stay, right? We don't anticipate it going anywhere. It's so popular. It's so helpful. It's so assistive, right? That's the thinking we should be having. So what are our next steps? How can we use these tools properly? People are working on it. We're trying to develop policies. We're trying to develop ways to identify AI written work versus not. I'm going to tease a very cool study that we're going to be doing in our lab about how teachers and educators perceive AI written work. So these things are happening and these things will come out, right? How do we evaluate the process, right? So I just used a lot of AI, but how do you evaluate that rather than evaluating my final essay? And how can we use these tools to support educational outcomes? So I want to wrap up with a big thank you again to Heidi and the I Think team for having me. And I really want everyone to just try these tools, try Copilot, play around with it. You will get better, and it's a really fun process as you do. So if anyone has any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, it was a pleasure, and I'll wrap it up with the presentation there.
Wow, Liran, that was really remarkable. Oh my goodness, what a fabulous demonstration. And I can think of hundreds of students that I've taught over my years in teaching who had that exact same experience of sitting down, getting assignment. Sometimes the assignment isn't clearly written. Sometimes there's so much information there, but to have an assistant that can help remind me of all the steps in the process and teach me how to work my way through writing an essay or completing assignment until it's automatic in myself. I might not necessarily have to always go back to the assignment. It's
Yep.
reminding me of what to do so then I can work independently, which was an idea you said right at the beginning. It's to help people get independent. It's not doing the writing for you, but it's helping you get the structure you need to get the task done. And most of all, to get your own ideas out onto paper about the thing that you're learning about.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all it is.
Wonderful. Well, I'm going to thank you very much, Liran, and students. We've come to the end of a session. We're going to send you on with a day. This has been recorded, and so your teachers will be able to access that again. So if you want to go back and look at some of the things that Liran showed you today, how did he do that? How did he do that? That you have the recording there to help you out to revisit. All right, everyone, thanks for being with us today, and look forward to your learning as you answer that question. How might AI enrich the lives and possibilities of every student in our school? Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well done. Thank you so much for that pause at the end.